Good day, everyone. My name is Angelica Engle. Today, I want to discuss about the lesson 2.1. So, let's start in the definition of terms. Number 1, metacognition. So, when we say metacognition, awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes. Number 2, space retrieval. So, space retrieval is an evidence-based memory technique that uses procedural memory to help people recall information over progressively longer intervals of time. And number 3 is a stimuli. So, when we say stimuli, is a causes an action or response like the ringing of your clock if you didn't sleep through it. And the number 4 is a semantic or relating to meaning in language. Number 5, we have the brain lateralization. So when we say brain lateralization, is a lateralization of the brain hemispheres refers to a functional dominance. One hemispheres over the other, in which one is more responsible or entirely responsible for control of a function in comparison. So let's proceed in the lesson 2.1, which is the multi-store memory. So according to Atkinson and Schifrin, 1968, proposed the multi-store memory model, also known as modal. So when we say model, which is basically a structural model, together they propose the notion that memory. So we have the consists of three stores. So number 1, we have a sensory register. Number 2 is a short-term memory or the STM. And the number 3 is the long-term memory or the LTM. As such, information is said to be detected by the sense organs, which then proceeds to the sensory memory. So, this if attended to can enter the short-term memory. So, when the information from the short-term memory is up, researched or repeated, it gets transferred to the long-term memory. So, however, without maintenance, rehearsal, or repetition, information may be forgotten and gets lost from the short-term memory by the process of the displacement or the decay. So, the memory stores. Each store is a unitary structure and has its own characteristics in terms of encoding, capacity, and duration. So when we say encoding, is the way information is changed so that it can be stored in the memory. There are three main ways in which information can be encoded or changed. So number 1, we have a visual or picture. Number 2 is acoustic or sound. And number 3 is a semantic or meaning. So the capacity means concern how much information can be stored. And the duration refers to the period of time information can last in the memory stores. So this is the example of table. We have a store, duration, capacity, and encoding. So for first one, we have a sensory memory. So the duration is a 1/4 to 1/2 second. And the capacity is all sensory experience or the larger capacity. And the encoding is a sense specific. So like for example, is a different stores for its sense. So second is the short memory term. So the duration is a 0 to 18 seconds and the capacity is 7 plus and 2 items and the encoding is a mainly auditory. And lastly we have the long memory term. So the duration is unlimited, and the capacity is unlimited, and the encoding is mainly semantic but can be visual and auditory. So, according to MacLeod 2017, pointed out the study conducted by Glanzer and Kunis 1966. So, which shown that when learners were presented a list of words, only the first few and the last few of those have the tendency to be remembered, while the words in the middle list are likely to be forgotten. So, moreover, there have been different types of long-term memory. So, identified just as episodic or the memories of events, and procedural or knowledge of how to do things, and the semantic is a general knowledge. So, let's proceed to the lesson 2.1, which is the dual coding theory. So, in 1971, a Canadian researcher, Alan Pabiu, proposed that the human minds operate with two distinct classes of mental representation or codes. So, verbal representation and mental image, and that the human memory thus comprises two functionally, which is the independent or auto interacting system or stores. So, verbal memory and image memory is according to Thomas 2014. So, this is the two example of dual coding. So, we have the visual channel and the auditory channel. So, the two codes or channels is our memory deal which visual and verbal stimuli, and so they stores those stimuli separately, say. So, they are linked to each other and hence makes retrieval easier. So, both words or images, they stimulate the retrieval of the other. So, while being independent of each other, they are also able to create what Pabiu called associative connection between them. So, they are both apart from one another but can operate forming linked pairs of words and images. So, by forming just as a link, the encoding process is enriched. So, it leaves a double memory trace, and in the words of Professor Paul Kirschner, result in double-barreled learning. So because of them is a resultant double opportunity of being retrieved by the either verbal or visual means. So according to Caviglioli 2019. So according to Pabio, as cited by the Caviglioli 2019, so they define visual information as being synchronous or the simultaneous in structure, and that these synonymous terms explain that diagrams can be viewed. So, at one time, bearing most, if not all elements presented. So, for the meanwhile, verbal information is a sequential by nature wherein each word is addressed one at a time. So, there is a need to relate each word to other words to make sense of it. So, I effort to understand it, and for student to think about, or else not much learning can take place. So therefore, worth note that visual or ignore, don't teach. So according to Clark and Lyson 2004, cited by the Caviglioli 2019. So when we say diagrams should be represented to give information requiring less effort to understand it, and for students to think about, or else not much learning can take place. They should be taught of as platforms and that enable learners to better analyze text. That the ends, and God bless. Thank you.